All right, it's on YouTube now. Hello, Raymond. Hello, Ezra. I'm fine. How are you? It should be on YouTube now, Flavia. I just started it a minute ago. Am I under the weather? No, I'm not under the weather. It's summertime, and I have terrible summertime allergies that give me all kinds of stuff that drips down my throat, and I cough a lot. So I'm sorry for coughing. Sometimes I'm sneezing a lot, and my eyes itch. Ugh. Allergies. All right. So what are we doing today? Well, what's it called? What's the title of today's stream? That'll tell you what we're doing. That's right, Mark's method. So what does Mark's method mean? Uh, what it means is that I have been a teacher for a long time, since I was 18 years old, and I'm going to be 50 in a few months. So I've been teaching a long time, and I started teaching English in 2009. And since then, I have created many of my own techniques and methods and concepts about learning English and learning in general. So that's what we're talking about today. I am writing a book about it, which hopefully there will be some published parts of it soon that you can see. So we're going to talk about some of the concepts and methods in my book. Okay? So let's see. Oh, okay, that's a pretty big one. But let's start with that one because it's a common one. One of the most common questions that I get asked is about how to learn vocabulary. And most people who learn vocabulary, it seems like 99% of people, their choice of method is memorization. And that's not a good method. Memorizing is actually the most terrible way to learn anything, but it's definitely not effective for vocabulary. So that means you have to find another way. Okay, so let's talk about why is memorizing not a good way. Do you know why memorizing is not a good way? Tell me why you think memorizing is bad. You can easily forget. And why do you easily forget? Because it's boring. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You easily forget, and it's boring because it is a very shallow method of learning. It's a very shallow method. So, the faster you learn, the faster you forget. The slower you learn, the slower you forget. This is the rule of learning. That's why memorizing sucks. The faster you learn, the faster you forget. The slower you learn, the slower you forget. So that means that you need to find methods that are slow, but also deeper, connected methods. Methods that make sense, that have some kind of way for you to understand and connect with them, right? So how do we do that? Okay, how do we do that? The number one way to learn vocabulary, and this has always been true for every language on earth, the number one way to learn vocabulary is by reading. It's very, very, very simple. How do kids learn vocabulary? It's not really in school. We learn it by reading. That's very obvious to any teacher. Any teacher who teaches elementary school between the ages, of, let's say, 5 and 12, it is incredibly obvious which kids read books and which kids don't. The kids who read books, they have a much better vocabulary. It's so obvious at that age. At that age, the difference between a kid who doesn't read and the kid who does read, the vocabulary is vastly different. Vastly different. And why is reading a good method? Because reading is what we call contextual learning, contextualized learning. And contextual learning means you're learning the words in some context. So that the word that you're learning is part of a story. And when you read a story, you have a picture in your mind. And because you have a picture in your mind, now you have to find a way to picture this new word and make that picture fit within the bigger picture in your mind, right? So let's say you're reading a book and it has the word rocking chair in it, and you don't know what a rocking chair is. So, okay, you have to look it up and find out what is a rocking chair. But now, when they say the old woman sat in the rocking chair, now you have a picture of an old woman in a chair that rocks. Now you can remember that word, rocking chair. Oh, I remember rocking chair. Okay? So read. If you want to learn vocabulary, read. Read books, read short stories, read articles, read, I'm not going to say read social media because there is no reading on social media. TikTok is not for reading, that's why it's kind of stupid. Focus on things that have something of value to read, okay? But that could be anything. It could be poetry. It could be a movie review or a TV review or a restaurant review. It could be anything, but you should read, okay? Facebook is more for reading, that's true, and that's why I use Facebook, because at least you can write something of value. I know, that makes me old. But if it's old to want to make a statement that matters, then I'm fine being old. Because if youth means making statements that don't matter, then what good is that? If your statements don't matter, and they don't. When you make a statement that's only 10 seconds long, it doesn't matter. Whatever you said is of no value. Anyway, let's get back to reading. Reading is one of the best ways to learn vocabulary. What's the next best way to learn vocabulary? The next best way to learn vocabulary, in my opinion, is something called a thesaurus. Do you know what a thesaurus is? What is a thesaurus, everyone? No, Esra. A thesaurus is a book of synonyms. So it's like a dictionary. But a dictionary will tell you the meaning of a word, right? So the dictionary tells you the meaning of the word. A thesaurus doesn't tell you the meaning of the word. It tells you all of the words that have the same meaning or similar meaning. Okay? It tells you all the words that have a similar meaning. So for example, everybody knows the word happy, right? You know the word happy, right? But what about the word cheerful, delighted, ecstatic, elated, enraptured, exultant, glad, gleeful, jolly, joyful, joyous, jubilant, merry, mirthful, overjoyed, thrilled, upbeat, blessed, blissful, blithe, content, contented, convivial, gratified, peaceful, pleasant, pleased, satisfied, sparkling, sunny, tickled? I could go on. All of those words mean happy. They're like cousins. Some of them are like brothers, like twins. They're exactly the same meaning. Some of them are almost the same meaning, like a cousin. Okay? So, thesaurus.com. Go to thesaurus.com. It's a free website. They also have an app that I'm using right now. There it is. Look. Happy. All right, I know it's not very clear, but there it is, right? And what about sad? You guys know the word sad, right? But what about the word depressed, heartbroken, melancholy, mournful, pessimistic, somber, sorrowful, sorry, unhappy, bereaved, blue, cheerless, dejected, despairing, despondent, disconsolate, distressed, doleful, down, downcast? I can go on. All right? That's why a thesaurus is a brilliant thing, because you can click on one word you know and find a word that you didn't know that means the same thing. Right? So you can learn words that have a meaning that you already know. You can just say it another way. Right? So, for example, my students, many of my young students, when I say, hello, how are you? They all say the same thing when they reply. I'm fine, thank you, and you? 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 And I tell them, you know, you can say something else. You can say, I'm happy, I'm good, I'm delighted, I'm wonderful, I'm ecstatic, I'm so-so. I'm hanging in there. There are many ways to say something. Find another way. Find another way. All right? That's why a thesaurus is a brilliant way to study vocabulary. All right, so the first way to learn vocabulary, read, 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 read. The second way to learn vocabulary is use a thesaurus. Use a thesaurus. The third way to learn vocabulary is by topic. By topic. Do you know why the dictionary is a terrible way to learn vocabulary? Why is the dictionary a terrible way? Joskin, so, 这是还好啊。I'm fine is the most common answer, but it's not the only answer. And yes, Maura, that is the reason why the dictionary is a terrible book and a terrible way to learn vocabulary, because it's all alphabetical. And the alphabet is not a useful way of remembering or using or understanding where a word is useful in life. So if you learn all of the words, the A words, you don't know where to use any of them. If you learn all of those words, you still don't know where to use them or how to use them, right? So that's why it's terrible, okay? But if you look up a topic, choose a topic, like, for example, science. Type in the word science and vocabulary words. Science, vocabulary words. History, vocabulary words. Sports, vocabulary words. Computers, vocabulary words.
I'm not quite sure how
computer
to help you with that.
Whatever. Hobbies, vocabulary words. Interests, vocabulary words. College, vocabulary words. Colors, vocabulary words. Choose a topic and then find the words that are related to that topic. That's another good way, because it's connected. It's connected, right? All right? Does that make sense? And then the fourth way to learn vocabulary, and my favorite way, it's a difficult way, but it's my favorite. It's called etymology. And etymology means the history of where words come from and how they've changed over time. And I think it's really interesting. And guess what? English words come from many, many, many languages, and sometimes, I would say at least 50% of the time, the word has an interesting story behind it. Okay? The word has an interesting story. So I'm going to give you an example. Do you guys know the word maverick? Maverick. Do you know what a maverick is? What is a maverick? Let me write it for you. Yeah, do you guys know what a maverick is? Ooh, Jack, I don't know the Chinese for it. Let me see. Maverick. This says 持不同意见的人，持不同意见的人。Yeah, so a maverick is somebody who does their own way, like a rebel. Yeah, to do their own thing, their own way, right? Now, where does the word maverick come from? Okay, the word maverick, originally the word, it meant a calf or a cow that didn't have a brand on it. Do you guys know what a brand is? What is a brand? The word brand, what does brand mean? What is a brand? So the word brand has two meanings. The modern meaning of the word brand is about a company name, right? Like, what's your brand, right? Nike is a brand, Adidas is a brand, right? Those are brands of companies, right? But the original meaning of brand was talking about cows and animals. Because a long time ago, if you were a farmer and you had many cows, how do you know which cows are yours and which cows are somebody else's cows? How do you know if someone stole your cow? They used to put something on the cow called a brand. And a brand was a very, very hot, hot, hot piece of metal. They would put it in the fire and make it very, very hot. And it was in a special shape. So maybe it was the shape of an S if their family name had an S, or maybe it's the shape of an H if the family name was an H, or maybe it's the shape of a star or something. And yes, they would press the hot iron into the cow to burn it into the cow. So, here's the story. Listen, the word maverick, it originally meant a cow that did not have a brand on it. Why? Because there was a man named, what was it, John Maverick? No, I'm sorry, Samuel A. Maverick. Samuel A. Maverick was a man, and he was a rancher. He had cows, but he didn't like putting brands on his cows. He didn't want to put brands on his cows, and even though it was the law said you must put a brand on your cow, he refused. And that's now where we get the word maverick. Someone who does things their own way and refuses to follow orders is a maverick. Because of Samuel A. Maverick, a guy who refused to put the brand on his cow. Now, are you going to remember the word maverick now? Are you going to remember that word? Yes, and that's why etymology is cool. Because you don't have to try to remember it if it's interesting. If it's interesting, you will remember. Okay? And guess what? A lot of the words have interesting stories. I'll give you a couple more. Okay, I'll give you a couple more. Let's see. Since we're talking about Samuel A. Maverick, we'll talk about another word related to him. There's another word, gobbledygook. Have you guys ever heard gobbledygook? Gobbledygook. It's a funny word, right? Gobbledygook. And gobbledygook, it means language that's like, what is this? I don't understand this. What is this? What are you trying to say? What is this gobbledygook? I don't understand what you're trying to say. If the words you use are too complicated and people can't understand you, that's called gobbledygook. Okay, now where does the word gobbledygook come from? Well, guess what? It's actually from a guy named Maury Maverick, the grandson of Samuel Maverick. So Samuel Maverick is the guy who gave us the word maverick because he refused to put a brand on his cows, so he's a maverick. His grandson became a politician. His grandson was a politician, and his grandson didn't like all the complicated language in like the politics of things then, right? So there was a lot of politics in what they were doing, and he didn't like how complicated the language was. He said, this is not easy to understand. It's complicated. It's gobbledygook. And he called it gobbledygook because he thought it sounded like the sound of a turkey. The sound of a turkey. Gobble, 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 gobble. That's the sound of a turkey, right? And it's like, it makes no sense, right? What is that sound? That's gobbledygook. Okay? So the word gobbledygook comes from Maury Maverick. Maury Maverick, who was a Texas politician, and he used that word to describe any kind of language that's difficult to understand and overly complicated, pompous. Okay? And Samuel Maverick is the reason why we have the word maverick, meaning somebody who does things their own way. Okay? So there are two examples. Let me give you one more. How many of you like steak? Do you like steak? Yes, Raymond, don't spoil it. You've heard this one before, Raymond, but don't spoil it. Okay, so you like steak. And what about this word? Stick. Why is the word stick and the word steak, why do they look and sound so similar to each other? Stick and steak. Why are they so similar? What is the most simple way that you can cook a steak over fire? What's the simplest way to cook a piece of meat over fire? On a stick. That's exactly right. And that's why the word steak and stick sound the same, because they're related. See, that's cool. That's cool. Okay? What about the word shampoo? Do you guys know the word shampoo? What is shampoo? What is shampoo? Yeah, it's the soap we use for washing your hair, right? That's an Indian word. It's a Hindi word. The Hindi word shampoo, it comes from a word that means to massage. To massage, because what are you doing when you wash your hair? You massage it. That's where we get the word shampoo. It's Hindi. What about the word restaurant? Where do we get the word restaurant? Restaurant. Champagne comes from French. Same with restaurant. Champagne, right? Champagne. It's an area of France, actually. But in this word, restaurant, what is the word restaurant? It's not exactly rest, but you're close. You are close. The word restaurant is a French word that it comes from a Latin word, actually, that means to restore you. To restore you, to make you feel better. Why? Because the first restaurants were places that you could go to buy food that maybe somebody had more food than they needed, right? Some house, they have more food than they need. So they sell some of it to make some money. Okay? For example, what is this? What is this? What is a pub? What is a pub? Do you know what pub means? What does pub mean? 酒吧, yeah, but public house. Ornella has got the word. Public house. It means public house. Why does it mean public house? It means public house because that's what the first restaurants and bars It wasn't a business, it was someone's house. They had a house. Maybe they had some extra food, they had some extra wine that they made, and they wanted to make some money, so they would sell it. So a public house, a pub, is a house that's public, that you can go and buy food and drinks, right? A restaurant is the same. It was a public house, right? So public house actually comes from English. Restaurant comes from French, but they were the same idea. They were the same idea. Daniel says, could it be a nightclub too? It can now, Daniel, right? So if you say, I'm going to the pub now, technically, no, Daniel. Technically, a pub is never a nightclub. Technically, a pub is always just a bar. That's a pub. If you say I'm going to the pub, that's not a club, that's a bar. Okay, but, Daniel, there are some people who might call it a dance club, a pub, but they're wrong, but they might do it. You might hear it, okay? So, the word restaurant comes from French. The word cafe comes from French. There are many words that come from French. The word kindergarten, what does kindergarten mean? Kindergarten. It's a school for little kids, right? So, it's a German word, kindergarten. Kinder means children. Garten means garden. So kindergarten means kinder, children, garden. It's a garden of children. It's a place where kids grow. That's what a kindergarten is. Okay? And it's a German word. This is all etymology. This is all etymology. English has words from Latin, Greek, French, Italian, Spanish, German, Hindi, Arabic, Persian, Chinese, Japanese. You pick a language, pick a major language, and I'll tell you a word in English that comes from that language. Pick a major language, and I'll tell you a word that comes from that language in English. Anyone? Choose a language. I said a major language. I'm sorry, but Tamil's not a major language. It's a good language, but not a major one. What comes from Sanskrit? Many languages come from Sanskrit, or many words come from Sanskrit, but not everything. Arabic, okay. The word algebra, the word alcohol, the word algorithm, all come from Arabic. The word caravan comes from Persian and Arabic. Russian, yeah, there are a few words in Russian as well. Let me remember what they are. English words with Russian roots. There are some words in the English language that are Russian. However, because of the history of Russia and English-speaking countries, sometimes the words that we adopt are part of that history. So, for example, the word pogrom and gulag, we know what those words are because those are Russian, right? Borscht, right? We know what borscht is because it's Russian, right? It's a food, right? Vodka, it's a Russian thing, right? You know, so a lot of these are, they have to do with the cultural connection. Not a lot of them. They all have to do with the cultural connection. Let's see. Other words from Russian. Let's see. No. Etymology. There we go. The word mammoth Babushka, and I'm sorry, you're supposed to say it babushka, right? Babushka. But for some reason, we pronounce it funny. Ever since I've been a boy, we always said babushka. We put the accent on the second part, but I know it's supposed to be babushka, right? Yeah, but not too many. Beluga, let's see, ruble, comrade, commissar, let's see, what else? Parka, czar, glasnost, right? I mean, these are words that are part of history, and we have to know about the history so we learn the words, right? Okay, so that was Russian. What other, was there anybody else who had some other words? Chinese, there are plenty of words from Chinese. Haozhou bujian, long time no see. When you say in English, sometimes we say no can do. No can do. Or let me have a look see. 我要看看. 不可以. No can do and let me have a look see. Those are what we call pidgin English, pidgin Chinese English. So those are words. Chopsticks comes from Chinese. It's the word chopstick, kuaizi, it means quick sticks, or kuai means quick. So chopsticks, chop it's a complicated thing, but it comes from Chinese also. Kuai means quick in Chinese. Chop is the version of that. It's complicated to explain how it became that, but yes. Okay, so there are plenty of words from Chinese. Not a lot, but there are some. Let's see, what else? Hindi, the word jungle, pajama, jungle, shampoo, bungalow, bandana, khaki, punch, meaning the drink. Those are all Hindi. Let's see, what else? Yes, the word alcohol comes from Arabic. It's an interesting story. Because, yes, it's funny, like, wait a minute. Arabs they're not known for drinking alcohol, so how does the word alcohol come from Arabic? It's because they had a word, it was, I believe, pronounced alcool. And it was talking about the makeup that the women used to use underneath their eyes. The darkened makeup that women would use under their eyes was called alcool. Why does that have to do with alcohol? Because the way that they made the makeup was like the process of what's it called? Distilling. To distill. It had something to do with that. So it was related to a similar process. And that's where it comes from. Okay? Let's see. Whiskey is an interesting word. Whiskey comes from Scottish Celtic language. The original word was Uskabatha. Uskabatha, it meant water of life. Uskabatha means water of life. And that was the word they used for whiskey. Uskabatha. Whiskey. Mother and brother do not come from Sanskrit. I'm sorry, Mr. Pankaj, but no. Mother and brother come from Latin. Mater, fater. Those are Latin words, not Sanskrit. So if you want to know about etymology, where do the words come from? Mr. Pankaj, Sanskrit is an ancient language, and yes, many words do come from there. But unfortunately, you can't say they come from there in any real modern way, because there's no link or connection to them in any modern way anymore. There are two languages like that. One is Sanskrit and the other is called Proto-Indo-European, PIE. Those are the two foundational languages that most languages are based off of around the world. Most languages somehow derive from either Sanskrit or PIE or a relationship of the two. But it has no value to go back that far sometimes. If you go back too far, you lose too much of the meaning. The meaning can change too much over time. And the pronunciation and the spelling, it goes too far. So etymology is useful when you keep it within a certain time period where the changes are not too drastic. So that's why we don't usually refer to Proto-Indo-European or Sanskrit when we're talking about etymology. There are some words that come up that I will say that's a Sanskrit word originally, but not often, because it's not valuable to do so, because you'll just confuse someone. Because etymology has two purposes. One is to accurately trace the history, and that's what you're doing. The other reason is not for accurately tracing the history. It's for understanding how the word has changed and what it means now. But if you go back too far, so if you go back 1,000 years, there's a lot you can learn. Maybe even 2,000 years, there's a lot you can learn. But if you go back before that, it becomes almost not very useful anymore. Okay? So, and please do understand that I'm not like an expert, but I do know a lot about this subject because I have been studying it since I was about 15 years old. Okay? And yes, some words are simply borrowed from other languages with no change. That's right. Especially English, because that's what we do. We have cultural mixing. Every language does that. They're called borrow words, right? Like in Japanese, the word for milk is milku, right? In Chinese, the word for sofa is shafa, right? So there are some words that are almost the same or exactly the same, or very close to the same. Okay? Yeah, kung fu, gong fu, right? Doufu, right? Tofu, right? Ginger, dim sum, right? Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, be patient. I'm reading comments. The term work like a horse, is that from Chinese too? Not that we know of, no. There are some phrases that exist in multiple cultures independently. So, for example, to kill two birds with one stone, that idiom exists in Chinese and in English, and they have no relationship. Those two idioms were created separately by two different cultures at the same time. And there are many idioms that are like that. In English, we have the golden rule. The golden rule says, treat other people nicely if you want to be treated nicely. Right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In Chinese, they say the opposite meaning, but it's the same thing. They say, don't treat people badly if you don't want to be treated badly. It's the same meaning, though. Right? One moment, everybody. Let me check something. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm using the microphone. Thank you, Liz. I think it's okay. Meenakshi says sorbet is from Persian, but that doesn't sound right to me, but I'm going to check. The word sorbet, the way it's spelled, makes me think it's French. Yeah, the word sorbet comes from the word sherbet. Sherbet. Now that's the word that you're looking for. So sorbet is the French version of the word sherbet. Sherbet comes from Arabic. It does come from Arabic. It says the word it was Turkish sherbet, and that came from Persian sharbat, which came from Arabic sharba, meaning a drink, or shariba, meaning he drank, I guess. Right? Right, so sorbet and sherbet are related words. So you're close. You're very close. Yeah. That's right. Cotton jar, lemon, Amir. Coffee, almost. Coffee doesn't come from Arabic. Coffee comes from Ethiopia, actually. In Ethiopia, the country of Ethiopia, they have a place called Kaffa, Kaffe. And that is the original place where coffee comes from, is from Kaffa in Ethiopia. So it's actually, it predates Arabic to be Ethiopian. Okay? Let me see something here. Wait a minute. Is... Okay, so guess what? Guess what? Meenakshi is saying mother and brother are derived from Sanskrit. You're wrong. They are, both the word mother and brother are cognates in both languages, which what that means is they're both actually from Proto-Indo-European. So Proto-Indo-European is where those words come from, and then they became Sanskrit and Latin from that. Okay? Yeah, but it's another one of those funny things. Now, here is another thing that's very important to remember. Language is something that is very interesting because everyone has a different history with language, right? There are some cultures that wrote everything down. The Sumerians, they wrote a lot of stuff down. And so did the Egyptians. They had a lot of written stuff, right? But some cultures did not, like the Vikings, the Norse cultures did not write a lot. You know, so they don't have a lot of written language. That doesn't mean they don't have language. They just didn't have a lot of written language, right? So then it also becomes very muddy. It becomes unclear. So, Meenakshi, the other reason why we don't talk about Sanskrit or Proto-Indo-European is because it's simply too old. It's that simple. Okay? You're missing the point of etymology. In this case. In this case. Okay? Sugar also, if I remember right, comes from Arabic. Sukar, I believe, right? Am I an engineer? Why would you think I'm an engineer? Spanish, Romina, Spanish words in English, the word cafeteria is an interesting word. Cafeteria comes from French café, but then they added the teria part. cafeteria is an ending on Spanish words, right? So cafeteria became an English word through French and Spanish. But there are many Spanish words in English at this point. Yeah. Yeah, al-sukar, there it is. Yeah, there. Thank you. Ketchup, that's right, Jack. Ketchup comes from Cantonese, an early version of Indo-Chinese that was available at that in that region at that time. Catsup. Catsup was the word that meant fish sauce. So it's really interesting. The history of ketchup is interesting because the word comes from Southeast Asia, but the flavor has nothing to do with Asia. So they used the word that they heard. It was British and Dutch sailors. British and Dutch sailors that traveled to Southeast Asia. They heard the word ketchup about a fish sauce, right? When they were making their food, they had ketchup, meaning fish sauce. And it just was a word that meant sauce. They used it for anything. Sauce, some kind of sauce, right? So it's like the Chinese word jiang, right? But then they created their own flavor, a completely different flavor in the West. But they used the word from the East. And yes, Sophia, those are the 4 tips. Read the thesaurus, topic, and etymology. That's right, yeah. Sanskrit is much older. How can it be derived from other languages? Because they coexist simultaneously. Not every word in Sanskrit was created on the first day. Sanskrit developed over time just like every other language developed over time. So every word in every language didn't appear on day one. Languages grow over time. So that means they overlap. Their histories overlap. Okay? And, by the way, Meenakshi, what is my name? Meenakshi, what is my name? Not just Mark. Not just Mark. What does it say at the top of the screen next to my picture? It says Teacher Mark. Teacher Mark. So why am I saying that? Because I'm the teacher here, and I'm not here to debate. Okay? I'm not here to debate or discuss. I'm here to teach. All right? Meenakshi, hi. I'm 50 years old. I have been studying etymology since I was 15 years old. 60% of English words come from Latin or Greek. 30% of English words come from German. 20% of English words come from 30% of English words come from French. 20% of English words come from German. We have many words that come from Arabic, many words that come from Persian, many words that come from Hindi, many words that come from Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, Italian. We have many, 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 many words that come from many languages. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that I know what I'm talking about. You have to let me teach. Okay? Teacher is not a name. It is a name. If you put the title teacher in front of a name, it becomes part of the name. Okay? Just like when you go into a restaurant, they call the chef Chef Mark, Chef Paul, Chef John. If it's part of a title, it's part of the name. Okay? Aliu? Yeah, it's a title. And titles are names sometimes. Okay? That's how titles work. There are some times when the title becomes your name at that place. This is my place, my title. That's where I'm called Teacher Mark. When I go play drums, they don't call me Teacher Mark. They call me Mark. Okay? Like king, that's right. Or professor. Professor what? They say professor this, professor that, right? Same thing. Yeah, it's a name. Okay? They do call me Drummer Mark occasionally. Or Mark the Drummer. Yes. My email is markdrumsamson. All right, guys, we only talked about one method today. We talked about one method, but it's a great method. We talked about vocabulary, right? Vocabulary is what we talked about for 1 hour. I told you about the 4 better ways to learn vocabulary. Read, 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 read. That's the number 1 way. Use a thesaurus. Thesaurus.com. 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 Go to thesaurus.com. Use that website. Get the app. Use a thesaurus. Number 3, learn words by topic. By topic. Choose a topic, any topic, and then search for words about that topic. It's not hard to do. And then finally, etymology. Guess what? There's a website for that too. If you go to etymonline.com, that is a free online etymology dictionary. You can type in any word and it will tell you where that word comes from. Okay? You can type in any word and it will tell you where that word comes from. All right? Did I study articulated speech? No, not in any formalized way. Do you know what I studied, Maura? Acting. Nima, it's 60% from Latin and Greek, 30% from French, 20% from German. Okay, now there are people who will debate those numbers because it's not a perfect science. Some people say it's 20% of this and 30% of that and 40% of this and 60% of that, and there are many people who have different views because guess what? That's history. History is never 100% clear because you weren't there. You weren't there, so we never know exactly what the story really is. And that's why I don't like to talk about Sanskrit or Proto-Indo-European, because they're too old, and because they're too old, they don't really have much modern practical value to etymology. They only have historical value. They only have historical value. Proto-Indo-European is not worth talking about because it doesn't have any modern value, only historical value. Same with Sanskrit. Okay, now I'm not saying that to be demeaning. Sanskrit is an incredible language, an amazing language, but it's just simply too old. In the value of studying it for modern use, for modern understanding of context, the value is not there. Okay? The value is not there. So, Maura, how did I study acting? I studied acting for like 1 year when I was in high school. I went to a performing arts high school, and they had lots of really great, talented students there. And some of them were actors, right? And I remember I took this class, and you had to read something in front of the class, right? So we had to read something. And I remember I was so nervous, and I was so timid and shy, and I didn't speak clearly, and I wasn't speaking loudly. And my teacher told us that you have to pretend like your grandmother is coming to see you perform in your play. Your grandma is coming to see you, and she wants to see you, but she got a ticket in the back of the room. She bought her ticket too late, so her ticket is way in the back. So she's in the back of the room, and now you're on stage. So if you are on stage and you say, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Grandma's not going to hear that. But if you say, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Grandma will hear that. So we learned about projection, projecting your voice, and enunciation, diction, which means moving your mouth more to make every word extremely accurately, clearly, right? Extremely accurate and clear. Okay? So, that's what I teach. Move your mouth so that it's more clear and that grandma can see you and hear you. Okay? Let's see. You spent your precious time listening to a poor American guy who's just got dumped by his ex-girlfriend. I'm sorry to hear that. That doesn't sound like a very valuable use of time. Yeah. English and German are very often related to each other. Yes. Yeah. How did I study... if you're talking about acting, how did I study acting? I had a class a long time ago. And then you just have to pay attention. The beauty of acting is the study of people. A great actor is like a psychologist in many, many ways. Because to be a great actor, you must understand characters. To understand characters, you must understand different people and the way they act. So, an actor will pay attention to a person and study everything about them. And that's what you do. If you want to know how to speak like me, then study me. Right? Alu, I speak English and I also speak Chinese, and I know a little bit about many other languages. Okay? You can ask me about an idiom, yes. You must be kidding me, you were shy. Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably agree with you, right? Even my grade school teachers. I'm still friends with one of my teachers from grade school, and when he found out that I'm doing stuff like this, he was not shocked or surprised at all. You know, when he found out that I became a musician and I perform in front of people, he wasn't surprised at all. I think I have always been gregarious. That's a good word. Gregarious is a word that means very friendly and can make friends easily, right? Social, a gregarious person. But don't be confused. Gregarious people are shy sometimes inside. So, yeah, I used to be shy in front of people on stage. I'm not really anymore, but I used to be. Okay? Do I think it's a good way to study the pronunciation and the definition, also the meaning of the word, and use the words to not forget? Hazel, I think you need to go to my YouTube channel and watch this video later. I already answered everything about how to do words, how to do vocabulary. All right? So if you want to know about the best way to learn vocabulary, then then go follow me and check out my YouTube later, and you can watch this video again. Yeah, okay? Please be patient. I'm trying to catch up with the comments. Let's see. Meenakshi, yeah. Again, I wasn't trying to. You just need to understand that when I teach etymology for its practical value. But etymology in Sanskrit, those are not extremely practical. All right? So that's all I want you to understand, is that because it's such an ancient language, it's also a little bit more distant and not connected so clearly. Okay? So if I have to explain, let's put it this way, Meenakshi, there are some words that are derived from Sanskrit, but I don't tell you that. I only tell you it's derived from Latin. And the reason why is because that's where it's still understandable. Right? You can still see the connection. But if you go back before Latin to Proto-Indo-European or Sanskrit, you start to get so far back and it's so old that you actually can't really see how they're related anymore. Many, many words are like that. Okay, the Proto-Indo-European roots they often don't look at all like the modern word anymore. And that's too confusing for people. Okay? That's too confusing for people. All right? Okay. Gregarious was the word I said. It's right here. Gregarious. And thank you, Carolina, for my link tree there. Yes, that's my link tree. Go to my link tree. You can follow me. Okay? It's hard to overcome shyness. It takes time. Yeah, but so does everything. Okay? Go to Meenakshi. It's in my profile. Yes, right here. At the bottom of my profile, you should find that link. Okay? Languages are changing all the time. Languages are a living thing. They're constantly growing and changing. Yes. Not always for the better. Okay? All right. I wanted to talk about more topics today, but we only talked about vocabulary, but that's okay. It was a good discussion. Etymology. If you learn etymology, where the words come from, it can help you understand the meaning better. It can help you understand the pronunciation better. It can help you understand the spelling better. Okay? So when I see any word in English, if I see a word that has the letters E-T-T-E in it, I know that's French. If I see a letter that has S-C-H in it, I know that's probably German, maybe Greek. Okay? If I see a word that has A-L at the beginning of it, it's a strong chance it could be Arabic. Okay? So it's useful. It's useful. It helps me to remember spellings. It helps me to understand pronunciation. It helps me to understand why we spell the words that way, what it means now, and how it's changed. Some words have changed their meaning completely. There are some words that mean the opposite now of what they used to mean. There are some words that mean the opposite now of what they used to mean. Etymology. Etymology. Not entomology. Entomology is the study of bugs. Etymology is the study of words. Be careful, okay? Yeah, entomology. That's bugs. Etymology. That's words. Okay? All right. And once again, I don't know if you're still here, but Meenakshi, again, I wasn't trying to argue with you either. You just need to understand that etymology I find to be extremely interesting, but there are some parts of etymology that are not very practically useful. Okay? There are some that are just not that useful because it's too old. All right, good. Thank you. I'm glad you got my point. And I hope I wasn't trying to yell at you or anything like that. But sometimes it gets a little bit, combative, right? Shirin Bahar. It means the history of words and where they come from and how they've changed over time. Okay? Yeah. So, again, it can be very interesting. It's one of my favorite hobbies. There are so many interesting stories. Like, let me just choose another one. How about the word coach? Coach. What does coach mean? What is a coach? Everybody's saying it means a teacher, it means a trainer. But do you know what the original meaning of coach is? Ornella has it. It's a carriage. It's a carriage. It's a covered car. It's a carriage. Okay, do you know what a carriage is? Like the thing they used to have, they had a horse, and then behind the horse you would sit there and ride. That was called the carriage. Okay? Now, why does the word coach mean carriage? Because a carriage, what does a carriage do? It carries you. It carries you somewhere. Okay? And what does a coach or a teacher do? They carry you. They train you. Right? They're showing you the way. That's what a coach is. Now, it gets more interesting. The word coach itself actually comes from a place. There is a city in Poland. I want to make sure it's Poland. I think it's Poland. Let me make sure. One moment, sorry. Kosz, Poland. Oh, no, sorry, not Poland. Hungary. Not Poland. There is a city in Hungary, and the name of that city is Kocs, and it is pronounced Kosz. That city is a place where, in what year was it? In the 16th century, the city of Kosz created a new kind of suspension. A suspension for the coach that made it much more comfortable. So it became the most popular design for a coach. So the word coach, now when we think of the word coach, we think of a trainer, a mentor, a teacher. But the word coach was originally a carriage. And why did we call it that? Because it was invented. This kind of carriage was created in the city of Kosz in Hungary. That's interesting. Coach became What? That's really wild. How did it become about a teacher? Right? That's crazy. But cool. Okay? Yeah, coaches help you move forward. That's exactly right. Just like a coach does. A carriage. It helps you move forward. Right? That's a cool story, isn't it? Let me think of another one. Let's see. What's another really good story? The word genius. What is a genius? Genius means a person who's very smart, a person who's very talented, right? So the word genius, originally, it comes from the Latin word. They used to believe a long time ago that if you had a great idea or you had a great talent, that there was a spirit giving you that talent. There was some sort of a spirit that was giving you this information, giving you this talent. Okay? And that was called genius. Okay? But the word genius is also related to the word genie. What is a genie? Like in Aladdin. Right? And the word genie, it was a word that got confused. They were translating the story of Arabian Nights. Do you know the story of Arabian Nights? Famous story? They were translating the story of Arabian Nights. And in the story of Arabian Nights, there is a word, jinn. A jinn. D-J-I-N or J-I-N-N. It has a few different spellings, right? And a jinn is like a kind of a demon or a monster. Not a monster. It's a demon. It's a ghost. It's a spirit of some kind, right? And they translated it wrong. And so the word genius got confused and it became mixed with these two stories. So part of it is Latin, where they used to believe that some kind of a spirit gave you your talents. And part of it was from this bad translation of Arabic into French, where they confused this idea of the jinn with the genie, with the genius. That's kind of cool, isn't it? I think that's interesting. The word jinn and genie and genius are related, right? That's interesting. Okay, how about another one? How about, oh, I know, I have a good one. What does breakfast mean? What does breakfast mean? Morning meal. But Alexandra is correct. Breakfast is a funny, weird word. Why do we pronounce it that way? Because it means break fast. It means the meal that you have that breaks your fast. What is a fast? Fasting means you're not eating. Right now I'm fasting means I'm not eating. So when you have your breakfast, that's the first food that you ate since the last time. So you broke your fast. Okay? Now, let me ask you another question. What does dinner mean? What does dinner mean? Everybody says it means the last meal, but actually, dinner means the same thing as breakfast. The word dinner comes from an old Roman word, desionare, which means to break your fast. Dinner means to break your fast. Breakfast means to break your fast. They mean the same thing. Now, why is that true? How can that be true? How can they both be the first meal of the day? Do you know why? Because we didn't always eat 3 meals. The idea of eating 3 meals a day is a new thing. A long time ago, people ate when you got food. You weren't so lucky that you always had food. You might have one day that you don't eat at all, or a few days that you don't eat at all. So we started eating 3 meals maybe around the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution. That's about the time when we started telling everybody that you're supposed to eat 3 times a day. And guess what? Most of that is not even true. It's just marketing. It was marketing. They needed to sell products for food, for breakfast, so they told you that you should eat 3 times a day. Okay? Now, only lunch is okay, she says, Alexandra says. Actually, no. Even lunch is funny. Where does the word lunch come from? Lunch comes from, the word used to be luncheon. Luncheon was the word before. And luncheon was the meal between breakfast and dinner, right? So it was a midday meal, okay? And usually it was just a small thing. It was a small thing, sometimes like just a piece of bread. A piece of bread, right? So a piece of bread, a long time ago, they used to call a piece of bread a lump of bread. Here's a lump of bread to eat. Eat your lump of bread, right? And so lump, lunch, and then there's another word, the word nuncheon. Nuncheon, whoops, I spelled it wrong. Nuncheon meant noonday meat. Noonday meat was what nuncheon meant. And it's funny because the word meat, what does meat mean? Meat, now we think meat means animal flesh. But originally the word meat just meant food. It meant any food, originally. Okay? So the word lunch comes from noon, and the word lump and nuncheon put together, and then you get lunch. Okay? So basically that means noon meat, or it means afternoon meal. Okay? So yes, you're correct that lunch is the only one that's actually somewhat true, right? It is the midday meal. It's just a snack in the middle of the day, right? What about dessert? What does dessert mean? What is a dessert? The sweets after the meal. That's right. But the word dessert comes from the French word desservir, which means to clear the table. It means actually to unserve, right? So if you hear desservir, serve, the word serve is in there, and de meaning not, de, right? Like to not do something, right? So desservir means unserve. Why? Because when do you eat dessert? You eat dessert after they come clear the table. and then they bring you your dessert. So, now when we think of dessert, we always think of something sweet, but it wasn't necessarily always sweet. It was just something, it was the final thing to eat. It was the final thing to eat. Okay? And yeah, it means to clear the table. That's what dessert really means. It means clear the table. We're bringing, ice cream. Clear the table. Yeah, right. It could be cheese, fruit, right? Different things like that. Okay, so breakfast means first meal of the day. Lunch means small midday meal. Dinner means first meal of the day. And dessert means clear the table. Okay? So, man, am I a nerd for this stuff, aren't I? I'm such a nerd for etymology. One day I'm going to have to figure out how many words do I know the actual origin of. It's got to be a lot. At this point, it has to be a lot. It must be thousands now. I don't know. But they're all stuck up here. So how many times should you eat per day? Lena, you should eat when you're hungry. That's a simple, simple rule. You should eat when you're hungry. But we eat all the time when we're not hungry. We eat all the time when we're not hungry. We eat when we say, I'm supposed to eat right now, so I eat. It's lunch, I'm supposed to eat, so I'm going to eat something. But you're not really hungry. You just think you're supposed to eat. Okay? So, not 3 times a day. I'm sorry, but I don't think 3 times a day of meals, full meals, I don't think anybody needs 3 meals a day, in my opinion. 2 meals a day, I think, is pretty good. 2 meals and a snack is perfect. But the simple rule is exercise when you should and don't eat when you don't have hunger. That's the golden rule of eating. It's very simple. Oh, Mora, I'm definitely an emotional eater. Yeah, and the worst part is, Mora, I'm a pretty good cook. So I can cook just about anything, and it's gonna be delicious, and then I eat a lot. So I'm an emotional cooker and eater. Yeah. Anyway. The problem is I'm hungry all the time. Maybe. Or maybe you're just bored. Because I'm Italian too. I'm not Italian. I wish I were, but I'm not. No. I do love Italian food though. Okay. I could go on and on and on about etymology, you know. When I look at my list of words that I know, I just, wow, all those words. Just name a word and I can tell you where it comes from. You know, name a word and I can tell you if it has an interesting story behind it. And you'd be surprised. So many of them do. So many of them do. All of the days of the week have an interesting story. All of the months have an interesting story. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think people eat out of boredom all the time. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. It's been an hour and a half. It's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. It's been an hour and a half. I hope you guys enjoyed my stream. I think I probably... Oh, good. I didn't ignore anybody today. Excellent. Sometimes I forget about my YouTube people, but it doesn't look like anybody made a comment, so okay. All right, I have to go, but I will see you guys tomorrow. Come back and see me again. If you haven't followed me yet, you should. I have 82,000 followers here on Hello Talk. 82,000 followers. Why? It's definitely not because I'm cute. It's because I actually do teach English. Okay? And it's something I know. I don't know everything, but I know some. Okay? And I'm pretty excited about teaching, if you didn't notice. If you didn't notice, I like to teach. I enjoy what I do. So, people seem to like it because I like it. Okay? So follow me, come back and see me again, and I will be back tomorrow. All right? Thank you very much, Nana. Thank you, Hayam. Thank you very much, Morty. Okay. Have a good morning, have a good afternoon, have a good evening, wherever you live in the world, and come back and see me tomorrow. Okay? Bye-bye, everyone.